Hello. Okay. Just gonna change something here. Learn some Mishnayos. Okay. All right. Mishnah Terumais. We're gonna learn from the elucidated Mishnah from a daf a day. This is in honor of Shloshim. Okay, hold on a second. Rachel bat Rachel. Okay, Terumais 62. All right, here we go. Chamisha Yisremu. The following 5 people cannot separate Truma. If they did separate Truma, ain't Trumas and Truma, then it's not Truma. The 5 people are someone, a deaf mute, it's translated simply as a fool, but we're talking medically defined shaita. Child, a person who tithes someone else's produce without permission, and someone who's not Jewish who then goes and tithes a Jewish person's produce even with the Jew's permission. A deaf person who can speak may not separate truma lechatchila since he cannot hear his own bracha, but b'diavad it's considered truma. Generally, the deaf person to whom Chazal refer means a person who can neither hear nor speak. So chedesh, we mean, like we said before, deaf mute, not just deaf. Gimel. Rabbi Yehuda Imer Truma Sitruma, Rabbi Yisrael Imeri Machliva Lainas Nidarim, Ein Truma Sitruma. Shabala Ein Sidarim Truma Sitruma. So what with regards to a katan, if they haven't grown 2 body hairs, it's a sign that those 2 body hairs would be a sign of physical maturity. Then it's Rabbi Yehuda says that the truma he separates is still valid after the fact, provided he has reached the age of chinuch, which goes against the Tanakama and Mishnah Aleph. Rabbi Yossi says that he has to be old enough for his Nadarim to be valid, which would be 12 for a boy and 11 for a girl, in order to be able to separate Truma. Again, both of those are arguing on Mishnah Aleph. In terms of Shalosh, Hashem and Yayin, Im Torah B'Shamay Imrim Trumas Atman. A person has olives and olive oil, both of which must be tied. He may not separate truma just from the olives on behalf of both the olives and the oil. This one may not tie an unfinished product on behalf of a finished product. Similarly, if he has grapes and wine, he cannot separate from just the grapes on behalf of the grapes and the wine. If he did so, Beis Shammai says the olives and the grapes are considered tithe, but the oil and wine are not. Beis Hillel says nothing. You're supposed to tie. He meant to tithe everything together, so either he does it all together or he doesn't. Hey, enter من على كده من الشيخ من أبيا من هفكر ולא ממייס הראשון שנטלה תרומסי ולא ממייס השני והקדש שנפטו ולא מן אחיו על הפטור ולא מן הפטור על אחיו ולא התלוש על המחובר ולא מן המחובר על התלוש ולא מן החדש על ישן ולא מן הישן על החדש פרס ארץ על פרס חוץ על הארץ ולא פרס חוץ על הארץ על פרס ארץ ותרמו ותרומת in truma. Person has tevil produce, he may not separate truma on its behalf from Leket Shicha Peya Hefker Meiser Rishon, from which Truma has been separated, or Meiser Sheni or Hektish that were redeemed, since all these things are exempt from Truma. One may not separate Truma from produce obligated in Truma, fully grown produce, meaning on behalf of produce that is exempt, meaning Truma that didn't grow all the way, but rather only a third of its development, or vice versa, or the other way around. Nor may one separate truma from produce that has been harvested on behalf of produce that is still attached to the ground, or vice versa. Nor may one separate truma from this year's crop on behalf of last year's, or vice versa. Nor may one separate truma from the produce of Eretz Yisrael on behalf of produce grown abroad, or vice versa. In all of these cases, even b'diavad is not considered truma. But Hamisha la Yisremu, In terms of the following people can't do truma, but if they did trumas and truma, then it is truma. So different than aleph, these people be the evid. They're not supposed to do it, but if they did it, okay, it's truma. He'ilim, va'ashikur, va'arim, va'summa, uvalkeri. La yisremu, v'im tarmu trumas and truma. So who are these 5 people? Someone who's just mute, he's not deaf, he just can't speak. Somebody's drunk, somebody who's naked, somebody who's blind, or balkeri. Of course, the mute, naked, and balkeri can't be saying the bracha, but the drunk and the blind, they can say the bracha, but the problem is they might not do the truma properly. They might not tithe properly. They might not be tithing enough. So that's the problem. Okay, Zion. Any time living midbar, midav lemishkav leminim that will tell him who as a madud, as a shakav as a money. Any time basal, uakufa, shem shalmida. I will tell him who vahen chetzion ushlishan, lo yisrim asa chetzio shechetzio mida. Truma must be separated by estimate. Estimation station, baby. One may not measure, weigh, or count the amount that is separated. However, one may separate truma from produce that has both been measured, weighted, or counted. That has been measured, basically weighted or counted. That's the way it would be measured. One may not separate truma using a full measuring basket since it looks like he's measuring, totally measuring out. One may use it if it is half or a third full. One may not separate using a half full seah basket, even though we just said we could use a measuring basket but only half full, but with a seah basket, can't be half full because sometimes they're marked at that half point and used for measuring. Ches, anytime shemen shel zeisim hanichtoshin loy yayin al anavim hanidraches im tarim truma sitruma v'yachzer v'yisrem rishenim v'divas ifnei atzma chayavan ala chaimesh aval loy shnia. A person of olive oil and crushed olives prepared for breast pressing, or wine and crushed grapes for squeezing, he may not separate truma from the oil on behalf of those olives, or from the wine on behalf of the grapes. But yeah, if he did it, his tithing is valid. This is unlike since back in Dalit, it's different than what we just said in Mishnah Dalit, because the Kohen benefits here from receiving a fully ready product. But he has to tithe the olives and grapes again after he squeezes them. That's a dirabanan. If the first truma gets mixed with chulin, it makes the entire mixture forbidden to a non-kohen. If a non-kohen eats that first truma by accident, he has to add a fifth when repaying it. It took something that wasn't his. Right? So the second truma is only rabbinic, therefore neither of those stringencies apply. So you don't have to pay a fifth, and it doesn't make it the entire mixture forbidden to a non-kohen. Test the sermon shemesh al zaysim v'nechtashin v'yayin al navim la'asim tzimukim harei shetam shemen al zaysim la'achila v'zaysim al zaysim la'achila v'yayin al navim la'achila v'nam al navim la'achila v'nimlach l'darchan einei tzarich lisrim. If a person has olive oil and pickled olives, which he intends to eat and not squeeze them into oil, these pickled olives, or wine and grapes, which he intends to make into raisins, he may separate truma from the oil on behalf of the olives and from the wine on behalf of the grapes. Unlike in the previous Mishnah, these are all finished products. They're ready to go. If a person tied the oil on behalf of olives that he intended to eat, or olives on behalf of olives, or wine on behalf of grapes that he intends to eat, or grapes on behalf of grapes, and then he changes his mind and decides to go squeeze them, the truma is still valid. Since when he separated that truma, his intention was to eat the olives and grapes as they were, and they were considered a finished product in that case. You had ain't term door. Nigmanu Malachte al Davar, Shalay Nigmanu Malachte, Lemi Davar Shalay Nigmanu Malachte, al Davar Shanigmanu Malachte, Lemi Davar Shalay Nigmanu Malachte, al Davar Shalay Nigmanu Malachte, Tamru Tumasum Truma. The person has one pile of produce that has been fully processed and is therefore obligated in tithes, and another pile that has not yet been fully processed and is therefore still exempt. Or if neither pile has been processed, he may not separate truma from one pile and we have it another. But if he did so, the truma is valid, except in the case of olives with olive oil or grapes with wine in Mishnah Dalid, or even b'diavad the tithes are not valid since the kohen loses on the value of his truma. That was Perek Aleph.